tell us your first name?
My name's Amy.
Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
I would consider my childhood pretty normal. Two loving parents that worked very hard to provide for me. I never felt a lack of anything really, but I would say the one thing I did feel was fear. In a sense, my parents were very concerned or worried just by nature, so that inadvertently caused a lot of fear in me as a young child.
What do you mean? Could you describe that a little bit more?
Just always worried about things going wrong or not working out for the best. So just trying to control the outcome of everything through constant concern. If I got a cold, was like the worst case scenario. It felt like, whether they intended to be that way or not. But it left an impression on me at a very young age that was fear-based. And I would go through separation anxiety when I wasn't around my parents. You go to your grandma's house and I could barely make it through the night without, having to be picked up to go back home because I was just scared as a little kid.
Did you have any dreams as a kid?
I do. I felt like dreams for me, I traveled at night. I went places and experienced things. I feel like I would go out the window of my bedroom as a little kid and go explore and adventure. I would, come back, and every morning, it'd probably be about 3 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up and I would be scared. So I had this little teddy bear where I could honk the tail on the bear, and it would literally honk like a ree, 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 and I would do that until my mom would come in and comfort me. And I think I did that until the age of probably 5 or 6, because I just was scared as a kid for some reason.
Did you have any aspirations as a child growing up as to what you wanted to be?
Man, that, jumped around a lot. I always loved animals. I always connected with them very easily. So there was a phase where I wanted to be a zoologist, or I loved whales and dolphins, and just my imagination would go rampant with anything animal related. So I was drawn to them and helping them. Thinking I wanted to be a veterinarian, but not wanting to deal with what happened when animals would pass. I just knew that I couldn't handle that, so then I never followed through.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with your dad and how that generally felt?
My dad was a very cool guy. I mean, he was just good at everything that he did. He had a difficult childhood. He was half Japanese, so he was born in Japan and wasn't really accepted by his relatives because he was half American. My grandmother had him with an American soldier during the war, and he went off to war and never came back home. So my dad didn't know his father, and that left its mark on him. Another American soldier adopted him and moved him and my grandmother back to the States. But when they came back over here, he was 12, and life was tricky for him because he wasn't accepted over here either. And that was hard on him. And as loving and as fun-loving and as easygoing as he was, it was very clear that he had deep-seated pains from his childhood.
How did that feel for you, or how did you pick up on that?
Man, as a child, I just wanted my dad to be happy. In my younger years, he drank a lot. He was in a band. He was super cool and played guitar and just the center of attention wherever he went. But he coped, I think, a lot with alcohol. Once he stopped drinking, there was just always a sadness that followed him wherever he went. And I just, you love him so much and you want him to be happy, but you start to realize that it's not you. You can't make someone else happy. And then you just try and do your best to be there for them in order so they can enjoy the life that they have.
What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
My mom, I always thought my mom was a saint. She married the first man she met. You know, they were just like made for each other, and she did everything for him, like everything. She did everything for me too. She extended herself so completely to family and to loved ones, and she worked very hard in her career. I always admired her and her strength. She worked for the state of Kansas in social rehabilitation services, so she saw children hurt through, parents that couldn't care for them. And I always just wondered how she managed to stay so strong. I always wondered how we didn't have, I'm an only child, so how did we not have all of those kids at home with us? Because the things that she saw on a daily basis, I can only imagine, how that would make me feel.
How was it emotionally, your relationship between you and your mom?
I always thought it was pretty good until I started to try and become my own person. And then there was a lot of trying to get me to be the same that she was, and I was just not. I was very much my own person. I've always been independent and wanted to live life and experience life in the way that I meant to, but that did not necessarily align with her idea of me and how she thought I should be. So I felt like the older I got, the more I disappointed her.
Could you tell us about your first love and how that felt? That's whatever you associate as your first love.
Let's see, first love. First love, parents, it's parents. But man, my grandmother was a little 4'11" Japanese woman, and she was awesome. Like the kind of love where you could do no wrong. The kind of love that wasn't judged. The kind of love that was imaginatory and filled so completely with endless possibilities of everything, that as a child, it just felt so safe and secure that it was everything to me. And the joy that she had for me, it just felt different than other family relationships that I had. So it was probably my little Japanese grandmother.
What about your first loss or heartbreak? It's whatever you associate with that.
I identify as an empath, so I feel what others feel around me. And the first experience of loss I remember feeling was the family cat, Fluffy. And she passed away right behind my chair at the dinner table. So I always felt like, some sort of connection or tie there. But I remember seeing my dad just weep like a baby over the family cat, and I felt his pain, and it hurt so bad. And I was probably 4 or 5, but the impression that left on me, and seeing my dad cry, was rare. 1, for him to be so emotional, and 2, just to see it pour out of him. And then 3, my heart broke because he was crying over an animal, which I could relate to so very easily. That was my first experience with loss, and I obviously can still feel it right now.
Who would you say first taught you what love is and how?
I would say my parents definitely taught me what love is. Everything was done out of love and care and concern. Aside from my parents doing everything in their power to provide what I was needed to be cared and loved, I was in church and I learned love through church, a Christian-based church. That was probably, the one other factor that I really heard a message of what love was meant to be.
How do you define love, and what's the difference between what love is to you now versus what it was to you when you were younger?
Man, love now is unconditional love for everything as they are. Unconditional love is the biggest gift, and it comes from the oneness that Christ consciousness has to offer, because when we are one with everything surrounding us, the earth, other humans, people, when we are one, you don't want to hurt someone else because it's like hurting yourself. You don't want to judge someone else because it's like you don't want others to judge you. And when you can feel the judgment of other people and you've lived your life feeling it for so long, it is the last thing that you want to project onto anyone else. So love is absolute, and it's meant to be unconditional. That is the biggest lesson I've learned in the last 2 years. Love that most people experience is conditional love that is taught. I'll love you if this happens, or if you're good enough and you live your life this, and this way, then you're loved by God. And that's just not what I found to be true. Unconditional love is we're living a life that we're meant to make mistakes in, where there's no mistake that we cannot be forgiven for. And there's nothing that I could do today that would take unconditional love away from me. And that is the biggest difference. And it's also the biggest gift that I've been given in this life, is to understand that love is absolute. Anything less than 100% of love, that's just taking you away from your true self. Because if you can love yourself unconditionally through the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs, and you can love your neighbor in the same regard, that is happiness. And there is no perfect. You see everyone as living and learning and doing their best and respecting them on their journey and being able to admire them to make the mistakes and to keep going. If we all were able to operate in that fashion, man, this world would be a better place in a heartbeat.
How does that love feel now versus what love was for you back then?
Love is the secret sauce to life. The more love that you can put into your world, the better you will feel on a daily basis. The lighter you will feel, the better your body will be. When we have anything less than unconditional love for ourselves and for others, all it is doing is stealing your joy. If you find space in your heart to have any bit of hate or trauma or hurt, that's just stealing your joy. That just occupies space where you could have love for everything. So unconditional love is a gift. And the more you live in unconditional love for yourself and for others, the happier you will be in life, no matter what's surrounding you. Because unconditional love it's just so important.
What's a good day look like for you?
A good day is just in the moment, loving and living and enjoying what is happening right now in this moment. And I've worked really hard to realize that you have to be present in this moment in order to maximize your potential. You can't be worried about what happened in the past or thinking about all of the things that are going to happen in the future. You have to be happy and fulfilled in this moment. That's what life is.
What's a bad day look like for you?
Bad day, I would say, is healing trauma. So shedding any bit of a layer of conditioning that could be anything from shame that you've carried around for years. Maybe someone told you to live life a certain way and you disappointed them, and you feel it and you have to acknowledge it in order to let it go. So healing trauma can present itself in being very tired or unable to function, unable to get out of bed. It could also make your body physically hurt and pain. And I have those days, we all do. But being able to see them and to respect them for what they are and to be in that moment knowing that if I feel this now and if I deal with this now, tomorrow's going to be a better day. Because once you let go of the things that are weighing you down in a sense in life, then you're lighter afterwards. And that's when there's just more love.
How do you let go of those things?
So my process is to find the good. If there's a situation that I can't seem to get past, I take time. One, you have to be able to slow down and take time. And that's hard in this day and age. But once you start to realize how helpful it is to you, it becomes easier and easier. So I think, what are the good things that came from this bad situation? Or what are the good things that came from this hurt or pain? My dad died in my arms on Thanksgiving morning 5 years ago. That could break someone. What is the good that came from that? He died in my arms, no one else's. Like, that is special. And he went on his own terms. He always said he was going to live to be 65, and he died the day after his 65th birthday. There's good there. Did it hurt? Yes, it did. But can I choose to see the good in it? Absolutely. And I can also acknowledge the pain that it caused. I respect that situation for what it is, but I don't want to be defined by it, and I definitely don't want to be carrying that around with me for the rest of my life. So I acknowledge the good, I acknowledge the bad, and then I visualize cutting a cord and releasing myself from it. And I have done that in countless situations throughout my life. Relationships, bad relationships, even some good relationships that aren't in my life anymore, for whatever reason. It's fun to remember the good and to remember the feeling associated with the good. I feel everything, but that doesn't mean I need to carry it with me all of the time. So I've actually have to visualize cutting a cord and releasing it from me.
What's a person or an event that's shaped you, good or bad?
Every single bad thing that has happened in life, I feel like, is a gift in a sense, because it is trying to teach me a lesson. And that's what we're here to do. We're all here to live and learn. It's not meant to be a cakewalk. The more we fail, the closer we get to where we're meant to be. So I've gotten to this point in time in my life because I have failed over and over and over again. But I know that all it is doing is making me more of who I am meant to be. So when you start to think about life in that way, you're actually expanding your consciousness and keeping yourself from going down a downward spiral of doom and gloom. It's like when the bad things happen, I'm like, okay, what do I need to learn from this, and how can I release it so I'm not carrying it with me? And when you do that, man, life gets a whole heck of a lot easier.
What inspires you?
I love trying to experience as much as possible on any given day. I love just knowing about different cultures that are out there, because we're not all the same. We're not all meant to be the same. The more you can experience and learn from someone else about who they are and what made them who they are, that's the good stuff in life. That's the connections. That's the relationships that benefit everyone, but we have to be open to it. That just to experience cultures outside of what my home life is like, it makes life seem so much more enjoyable when we're all just human. We can be so ridiculously different and yet so similar at the same time. And I love that aspect of life.
What's been a humbling experience for you? Can you describe the feelings during that humbling experience?
Man, my spiritual awakening has been the most humbling experience of my life because, one, I had no idea what a spiritual awakening was and how it would impact my life for the better. I had no idea. And it has changed me and transformed me for the better in every single aspect of my life. Absolutely priceless. I have so much respect for spiritual beings because they are the ones living life as one with others, doing their part to serve humanity, to make this world a better place for our children and for our children's children. And when we dive inside of ourselves and heal the trauma and the damage that this life puts on all of us, and we actively take those steps forward, all those mistakes, we keep walking that path forward just to better ourselves, there is no better feeling to try and become the best version of yourself so you can help others.
Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Could you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war?
You know, when you talk about life being, mind, body, or soul, let's say. War for me was a couple of months ago when I felt like I was having to reprogram my brain because I had negative thought patterns. And to retrain my brain and to literally blast positive music into my ears 24 hours a day, trying to push away those negative thought patterns, it was war. I mean, there was a part of me that was almost scared on the inside because my brain was like trying to convince me that I needed to be scared of something. But my heart of hearts and my soul knew otherwise. So I felt like I had to reprogram my thinking through the spiritual awakening to separate myself from the fear that was instilled in me from a very young age. And that was, like, on a personal level, that was war for me. Away from myself, I turn on the news, it feels like war. Guys, it is like, what chaos are we looking at now? So I don't do that anymore. It's not good for me and my mind. It's not good for me and my soul. I'll get my information in other ways, shapes, or form, but it's not going to be through fear-based teaching.
How do you fight that war or approach that war?
Love, 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 love as much as possible. On the hard days when it's hard to love or not feeling it, then that's when I know to go out of my way and do something kind for someone else, because that will turn it around for me. Even if I can't physically get up and go do something kind for someone else, then I will sing someone's praises online. If there's a spiritual community online and it's all just positivity. There's not negative comments. It is uplifting and it is a spiritual. And when you surround yourself by those people and you praise them for, let's say they open up and share something that's vulnerable, and you can say, you know what, thank you so much for sharing that. It helped me in this way. So you're lifting them up, and then for me, that also lifts me up because I love to help others.
Same type of question. Go in your mind and think this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace?
Every day is peace. That is a gift that the universe offers to those that can master their emotions and find that steady quality of life that is taught through surrounding yourself with unconditional love and the spiritual community. The inner peace you gain is priceless, and it helps you understand that even if the sky falls, it's all going to be okay. It is not all doom and gloom all of the time. You can't live in survival mode. That is not even living. You have to find your inner peace. You have to balance your emotions in order to maximize this gift of life.
How do you balance that? How do you balance the inner peace? How do you do that?
It's a constant daily practice, a meditation, you know. Doing that. One of the hardest things I had to learn through the spiritual awakening was God is in the good only. God is in the good, and God could be the universe, your higher self, source, whatever you want to call it. Each heart gets to decide for itself what God is. And when you start to dive into yourself and learn what you're comfortable with, God is only in the good. Everything less than good is a lesson that it's trying to teach you in life. That's it. And sometimes when the same thing keeps appearing in front of us time and time again, that's because we're not learning the lesson that we're meant to learn. And it will continue to put itself in front of, like, how many lousy relationships have I been in because I didn't have worth for myself? Plenty. Until I got smart and figured it out. Because the universe was like, you want to keep doing this? Because we got these for you all day. But to understand that God is only in the good. Everything else is a lesson. What can you learn from it? When you start to master those lessons, you're walking your path towards purpose in this life.
Could you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life, how it felt, and how you endured? Let me just...
Okay, difficult time in life. I've had many of these. There's been friends that I would call them like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened. And it got to the point where they were like, I believe it. Like, your life is just like dumping.
Yeah.
So most recently, I turned 40 and I got fired for no reason. And I mean, I was killing it, making lots of money. My mentor was the person that employed me, and I looked up to him like a father figure. And he just fired me out of nowhere for no reason and literally crushed put out the fire in my soul. And I had to pick up the pieces, and I was just so brokenhearted. I had obviously given too much of myself to that situation. And it almost felt like the world was like, okay, all right, you think you got this? Here, we're just going to go ahead and drop a bomb on you, and we're going to see how you get through this. Because after that happened, I took my daughter to Seattle in February of 2020 for her 16th birthday, and I came back and had COVID. Like, before there were tests, before there was anything to help with it, and I thought I was going to die. I was in bed, and I knew in that moment that I could die if I wanted to. If I didn't have the fight in me, like, it was my opportunity to bow out and to be done. I was thinking about writing each kid a letter and hoping that that would be good enough to get them through the rest of their life without me. I mean, when you're at the end of your road and you know you have a choice to make, well, that's when you kick it into overdrive. And I wasn't ready. I could not leave my children. So I prayed. And I said, I will believe like no one else has ever believed, if I could just get better. If I could heal, I will have undying faith. And that's exactly what I did. And little by little, things would show up, things would come to me, information, articles that would help me get past that worst moment in my life and to carry me on my path forward. I literally felt like Mother Mary helped nurse me back to health with her and the angels of God and light and all that is good, because I didn't have spirituality before that moment, and that is what found me in my darkest days.
How do you describe, like, when you feel, or when you see, to walk by faith is to not walk by sight. So, but when you do see things in alignment and falling into place, and how does that feel when it's like, this is the next step?
Right. It's the best feeling in the world. And it's not an easy walk. So it's not like all the glory, all the God, all the good, all the time. It is like you'll be praying, and you're like, I thought I was manifesting some great stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm in alignment. There's a flow here. Yeah, I manifested some stuff all right. And it was to teach me a lesson. It was not, all sunshine and rainbows. So to be faithful is to literally survive what is in front of you and to not lose faith over it, no matter how bad the situation is, no matter how bad, to always come back to faith. You can get off your course, you can get off your path of purpose, but you always got to bring it back to faith. And when there's not faith, then there's hope for a better day. And those two things right there, that's what carries you through any dark time. When you lose hope and faith, what is there?
Could you tell us about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
In my darkest days, when I was super depressed, just on a ton of medication, drinking every night, I couldn't feel anything. I had no feeling. I was surviving life. I was not living life. And I remember I reached a certain point on my path towards purpose and on my path towards awakening. And it was like I had crested this new bridge of life. And, each one of my kids has a bedroom upstairs. And I was in bed reading or doing something, and I could hear each child laughing or interacting with themselves. And in that moment, that's all that I could feel their happiness for the first time in a really long time. And it was the best feeling of joy that I will never forget, because I know what it's like to not feel. I know what it's like to numb myself. I know what it's like to be depressed and to not have hope and faith. And all it took was a little giggle from my 10-year-old and a little interaction from my 17-year-old. And, and I just remember feeling so happy and so grateful to be able to feel their joy for the first time in a long time.
What keeps you up at night?
I still like to this day wake up at 3:00 every morning and my mind starts going. I don't mind it so much anymore because I really kind of try and set my intentions and to picture my best case scenario. In my darkest days, my brain would just be bombarded with all of the wrongs, all of the things to worry about, all of the things that are going wrong that need to be taken care of. I don't think that way anymore. Now it's like fantasizing about my best case scenario. So then I'm dreaming, I'm picturing, what's next for me in life and how am I going to make it happen. So it's just training that positive train of thought in order to bring the good to me.
When you had that spiritual experience that you pretty much cried out to God and you made a promise, right? You can make a promise with God. It makes you responsible. Did you feel something too in that moment? Did you feel like that hope, that faith? Did you have a glimmer of that emotional connection?
Yeah, I mean, when you're at the end of your road and God is the only one there for you, and I don't mean that family isn't around and they want you to be better, they want you to feel better. I mean, God is
That's it, yeah.
all that you have to ask for help. It's pretty humbling, and you feel the intention behind, you feel wanting to live. You feel wanting to be better. You feel hope for a better day just by believing in something outside of this world. Just by believing in something outside of the tangible things that you can hold and see. It's like it opens and expands your consciousness, and it releases all of the possibilities. Because in the Bible it says all things are possible. It's up to us to see it that way and to focus on that, And that I did. I felt hope, and hope was all I needed in my darkest moment. As long as I had a sliver of hope, I was good.
What keeps you going every day?
Helping others. I just want to lift people up. Because in this day and age, if you're not lifting someone up, then you're snuffing out their flame. And I know what that feels like. And there's enough of that in the world without me contributing to it in any way, shape, or form. I want to help people be their best. I always see the best in people. And I used to, at one point in time, it was like, that didn't serve me so well. But I've learned that when I see the best in people, it allows them to see the best in themselves. So it's a mirror effect. And for some reason, when I interact with people and I talk to people, I can tap into the happiest version of themselves, but they're telling it to me. So it's like they're speaking it to themselves without even really understanding. And I can help them work through the things that are holding them back or weighing them down or keeping them from feeling the best version of themselves. And I love doing that, from everyone at the grocery store to the gas station to literally anyone. If I can lift them up and just give them a little sliver of happy, then I'm living a good life.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
I have no regrets, ever. I really think that everything in my life has happened for a reason in order to put me where I sit today. I'm not ever going to regret anything, because there's always going to be a good that comes from every lesson that I've learned. If there would be a regret in that moment, it would be that I didn't have more time in order to enjoy more life. But
you told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
we're at a point in time in life where I just want everyone to be equal. There is this world, I mean, if we look around and depending on what we're focusing on, we're all human. It doesn't matter the color of our skin or the culture that we come from. None of that matters. We are all human. And in my perfect world, going forward, living this life, equality for all, at all costs, that is everything to me. If we could all come together and act as one and work together to make this place as great as it could be, there would be nothing that could stop us. So the more and more people that experience a spiritual awakening and walk their path towards purpose, it's only going to get better. And that's the direction that everything is headed in my reality. Just by sitting here speaking of it is helping someone. And it's drawing awareness to the importance of spirituality and to love yourself. You have to love yourself in order to be able to love anyone else in the way that they will need to be loved.
You're the co-author of your life story. What's your picture perfect ending? And it's not necessarily the end. It's just if it was a book or a movie, what's that scenic?
I just want to inspire people to believe. I was thinking about it the other day, and Buddha, Gandhi, all of these great, wise, just very knowledgeable souls, they're so simple. What if it was just that simple? Perception is reality. We see what we believe in. Why don't we just believe in the best case scenario and make that our reality? The more people, the more kids that learn, all you got to do is believe. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If you feel it in your heart of heart, you're meant to feel it. It's there for a reason. Feel, live life out of your heart. Tell your brain to take a back seat sometimes and feel what is meant for you in this life. I want to tell as many people that simple message as I possibly can, because that is when life gets good. When you're living your heaven on earth, when you find your I am presence, when you're living a life filled with purpose and passion, you are walking the path meant for you. And that is when you start living.
That's it.
Yep.